The 2015 Pan American Games, officially the 17th Pan American Games and commonly known as the Toronto 2015 Pan Am Games, were a major international multi-sport event celebrated in the tradition of the Pan American Games. As governed by Pan American Sports Organization, the Games were held from July 10 to 26, 2015 in Toronto, Canada. Preliminary rounds in certain events began on July 7, 2015. These were the third Pan American Games hosted by Canada, and the first in the province of Ontario. The Games were held at venues in Toronto and 17 other Golden Horseshoe communities. The Pan American Games and 2015 Pan American Games were organized by the Toronto Organizing Committee for the 2015 Pan and Pan American Games. The Games hosted 6,132 athletes representing 41 national Olympic committees in the Americas, marking the largest multi-sport event hosted in Canada. In terms of athletes competing, a record of 45% of competitors were women, the most ever for any multi-sport event. 364 events were contested in 36 sports, which included the 28 sports contested at the 2016 Summer Olympics. Certain sports also served as qualification paths for these Olympics. Canoe slalom and golf made the Pan American Games debut, as well as women's competitions in baseball, C1 canoe and rugby sevens. Bidding process. The Canadian Olympic Committee chose Toronto and the surrounding region as the Canadian candidate. No other Canadian city was given a chance to bid in a domestic race, and thus Toronto was selected without a vote. Toronto's interest in bidding came after failing to land the 1996 Summer Olympics and the 2008 Summer Olympics, which were held in Atlanta and Beijing respectively. On February 23, 2009, Toronto City Council and Hamilton City Council approved the bid and confirmed their intentions to support the successful hosting of the event. The official bid book document was submitted to the Pan American Sports Organization on May 27, 2009. PASO made an evaluation visit to Toronto between August 30 and 31, 2009. The team analyzed the candidate city features and provided its feedback back to voting members of PASO. The evaluation committee was headed by Julio Malioni, a member of the IOC representing Uruguay and the head of Fédération Internationale de Natation, the International Swimming Federation. After the visit, Malioni said, "Toronto has all the conditions to play host to the Pan American Games. Toronto won the bidding process to host the Pan and Pan American Games by a vote of the Pan American Sports Organization on November 6, 2009, at the PASO session held in Guadalajara, Mexico." The result was announced by PASO President Mario Vazquez Rana. Toronto faced two other finalists shortlisted: Lima, Peru, and Bogotá, Colombia. Toronto earned 33 votes, while contesting candidate cities Lima and Bogotá received 11 and 7 votes, respectively. Then Mayor of Toronto Rob Ford and Canadian Minister for Sport Bal Gozal received the Pan American Sports Organization flag during the closing ceremony of the 2011 Pan American Games in Guadalajara, Mexico. Development and preparation. Venues. The 2015 Pan American Games used a mixture of new venues, existing and temporary facilities, some of them in well-known locations such as Exhibition Place. After the Games, some of the new facilities will be reused in the Games time form, while others will be resized. A total of 30 competition venues across 14 municipalities were used for competition. 10 10 of these venues were newly built, while 15 were renovated to stage the Games. Toronto was one of the most populous cities in history to hold the Pan American Games. In July, Toronto has an average mean temperature of 22.3 degrees Celsius and afternoon maximum average of 26.6 degrees Celsius. The average humidity is 74%, and the city averages 5 days with the temperature exceeding 30 degrees Celsius and about 65 millimeters of precipitation, mostly brief periods of showers and sometimes thunderstorms. Toronto's elevation is 112 meters above sea level. In January 2012, the Toronto Organizing Committee for the 2015 Pan American Games announced that 60% of the venues that had been proposed would be dropped in favor of a clustering system seen at other multi-sport events such as the 2012 Summer Olympics in London, United Kingdom. The opening and closing ceremonies were held at Pan Am Ceremonies venue, or simply Pan Am Dome, due to sponsorship rules. Some of the competition venues in the Toronto area included Exhibition Stadium, the Pan Am Pan Am Fields, the Exhibition Centre and the Toronto Pan Am Sports Centre. Competition venues outside the city of Toronto included Hamilton Pan Am Soccer Stadium, Mississauga Sports Centre, Markham Pan Am Centre in Markham, the Oshawa Boxing Centre in Oshawa, and the Royal Canadian Henley Rowing Course in St. Catharines. Financing. The Toronto 2015 Organizing Committee and 3 jurisdictions of government were to spend about $672 million in upgrading and building new venues in the region. An additional $760 million was to be spent in operating expenses such as venue management and marketing. The Canadian federal government was expected to provide $500 million in funding for the Games, while the City of Toronto's contribution was to be $86 million. Other municipalities which are hosting sporting events were to cover $205 million of the costs. All remaining costs were covered by the Government of Ontario. Revenue from the Games were expected to cover 10% of the cost to stage the Games. The organizing committee expected to generate $172 million in revenue. In addition, $709 million was to be spent on building an athletes' village in the West Don Lands area of Toronto. A further $239 million was budgeted on security, while transportation costs were around $90 million. In 2014, the Ontario government provided an additional $74 million to expand the torch relay, provide additional live broadcasting of events among other things. Therefore, the total spent was expected to be $2.57 billion, the highest ever spent for a Pan American Games. Infrastructure. The Union Pearson Express, an airport rail link from Toronto Pearson International Airport to Union Station, started full-time service on June 6, 2015. The Games created a deadline for a project that had been stalled for years. In addition, a new GO Transit train station in Hamilton at James Street North opened in time for the Games. In October 2013, an expansion of the Pan Am site was announced to help complete 250 kilometers in gaps in Ontario's Trans-Canada Trail and connect communities from Ottawa to Windsor and Fort Erie to Huntsville in time for the Games. Connections to the waterfront trail were expected to be expanded and complete gaps in the trail. Premier of Ontario Kathleen Wynne announced the province is investing more than $3.5 million in Pan Am Parapan Am trails to help create a continuous trail of more than 2,000 kilometers. Athletes Village. The Athletes Village was located in the West Don Lands along Front Street between Bayview Avenue and Cherry Street. It had the capacity to hold 10,000 athletes and officials during the Pan Am and Pan Am Games, and after the Games will be converted into housing. The development was to be certified LEED Gold, in conjunction with the 519 and the Church and Wellesley neighborhood. The event also hosted the first Pride House for LGBT athletes and tourists staged at a Pan American Games. The volunteers. The organization committee expects 23,000 volunteers would be required for Pan Am and Pan Am Games. Over 63,000 applicants applied to become a volunteer. Ticketing. Ticket sales began in September 2014. The Games expected to have 1.4 million tickets for sale, with over 75% of them priced under $45. The first tranche of tickets was to be allocated via a lottery system. Over 1 million tickets were sold. Countdown. The one-year countdown took place in Toronto on July 10, 2014, in which a countdown clock was unveiled. A Cirque du Soleil performance was also held. Medals. In October 2013, it was announced that the medals for the Games would be produced and designed by the Royal Canadian Mint. In September 2014, it was announced that the supplier of the raw minerals used in the medals would be Barrick Gold. All the materials used in the medals will come from the company's operations in the Pan American region. The copper was mined at the company's Zaldívar mine in Chile, the silver at the Pueblo Viejo mine in the Dominican Republic, and the gold was mined at the Hemlo mine in Ontario. The designs of the medals were revealed on March 3, 2015 at a ceremony at the Royal Ontario Museum. The design of the medals for the first time in an international able-bodied multisport event included Braille. The medals are roughly 86.7 millimeters in diameter and weigh about 350 grams. The artist of the medals is Christy Belcourt. There are 3 shapes on the front of the medal representing North America, Central America and the Caribbean and South America, the 3 regions that will be competing at the Games, while also giving a feel and texture of the medal podium. The back of the medal represents the logo and motto of the Games, and the design also includes elements and techniques of mokumigaine. Torch relay. An application period for Canadians to carry the torch opened in October 2014 and continued until December. Anyone aged 13 or older as of May 30, 2015 was eligible to become a torchbearer. Most of the torchbearers were selected by random selection, while the others were selected by torch relay communities and Games partners. The torch took a 41-day journey after being lit in May 2015 at the pyramids of Teotihuacan, Mexico. The torch was brought through a total of 130 communities, mostly in Ontario. The torch was carried by about 3,000 torchbearers and traveled approximately 20,000 kilometers. The relay began on May 30, 2015 in Toronto and finished on July 10, the date of the opening ceremony. The detailed torch relay route and celebration sites were announced on February 24, 2015. The torch arrived in Toronto and then headed to Thunder Bay, before visiting all other communities on the route. The relay also visited 5 national historic sites of Canada, 6 Canadian Forces bases and 1 provincial park. There were 180 celebrations across the torch relay route. The Games opening ceremony. The opening ceremony of the 2015 Pan American Games took place on Friday, July 10, 2015, beginning at 8:00 p.m. EDT at the Pan Am Dome. The opening ceremony was produced and directed by Cirque du Soleil. The production became the largest event produced by the company. Governor-General David Johnston officially opened the Games. Closing ceremony. The closing ceremony took place on Sunday, July 26, 2015, beginning at 8:00 p.m. EDT at the Pan Am Dome in Toronto. The closing ceremony was produced and directed jointly by B5C Productions, BAAM Productions and Five Currents in association with Live Nation. American rapper and music producer Kanye West was chosen as the headliner for the closing ceremony. Although the decision was met with public backlash and spurred, an online petition was formed calling for West's removal from the ceremony. Other performers included Pitbull and Serena Ryder. Participating nations. All 41 nations of PASO were expected to compete, one less than in the 2011 Pan American Games, as the Netherlands Antilles Olympic Committee was dissolved in 2011. The numbers in parenthesis represents the number of participants qualified. Sports. A total of 36 sports, 51 disciplines and 364 medal events were contested in these games. Basketball was the only sport dropped from the last games. Golf also made its Pan American Games debut. Canoe slalom, the only Olympic discipline to never have been held at the Games, also made its debut, meaning for the first time the entire Olympic sports program was contested. Furthermore, both canoe disciplines had C1 events for women for the first time. Women's baseball and women's rugby sevens also made their debuts, with men's softball returning to the program, after last being contested in 2003. A total of 19 sports were direct or indirect qualifiers for the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. Numbers in parentheses indicate the number of medal events to be contested in each sport discipline. Calendar. In the following calendar of events, each blue box represents an event competition, such as a qualification round on that day. The yellow boxes represent days during which medal awarding finals for a sport were held. The number in each box represents the number of finals that were contested on the day. Events began 3 days before the opening ceremony on July 7 and ended with the closing ceremony on July 26. Medal table. Only the top 10 countries are listed in this article. For the full list, see the above link. Host nation anti-doping. Andre Silva, who ran the 400 meters hurdles on July 22, 23, was reported on the 19th of August to have tested positive for a prohibited substance in a doping control conducted by the Uruguayan anti-doping agency on 2 June. If found to have committed an anti-doping rule violation, his results from the Pan American Games is likely to be disqualified. Media. Broadcasting. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation served as the host and domestic broadcaster of the 2015 Pan American Games. Locally, coverage was broadcast in the English and French languages by CBC Television and ICI Radio Canada, TEAQ Teleacute, and CBC's website carried 650 hours of online coverage. Paid television rights were sub-licensed to Sportsnet, which aired the football tournaments, and a semi-final of the men's basketball tournament that involved Canada. Spanish-language rights were sub-licensed to Telelatino and Univision Canada. The broadcaster collaborated with U.S. Spanish-language rights holder ESPN to port on its own coverage. CBC stated that it was very happy with the ratings performance of the games. Primetime coverage averaged around 900,000 to 1 million viewers per night, and the opening ceremonies were seen by 1.93 million viewers across CBC and CBC News Network, with the largest audience being in the Toronto region. In the United States, ESPN held broadcast rights, with 66 hours of English-language coverage across ESPN and ESPN2, 44 hours on long Longhorn Network, 200 hours of Spanish-language coverage on ESPN Deportes, and streaming on WatchESPN. ESPN broadcast from studios at Corisky, which was linked to the IBC. ESPN and ESPN Deportes used their own hosts, as well as those of CBC, as part of its multi-platform coverage. Reed Record acquired rights in Brazil, paying a record $30 million. Other broadcasting deals include Torneos y Competencias Sports in Argentina, Claro Sports in Mexico, and Latina Television in Peru. The exhibition center served as the official international broadcasting center and main press center. The center featured broadcast studios, control rooms, editing suites, offices, and lounge space. During the games, the center was renamed in honor of sponsor Cisco Systems. Marketing. Logo. Toronto's bid logo was launched on October 2, 2008, with the then Toronto Mayor David Miller and then head of the organizing committee David Peterson unveiling the logo to the public. The bid logo looks like an abstract maple leaf with 3 sections, each section made up of 2 strokes in the shape of a V, with a spot in the center. The colors are green, red and blue. This was the official logo of the games until 2010, when the new logo was launched. On September 29, 2010, the official logo of the games was unveiled at a street party at Maple Leaf Square. According to Ian Troop, the former chief executive officer of Toronto 2015 organizing committee, the logo is designed on the basis of the different art styles seen throughout the 41 countries that compete at the Games. Mascot. In January 2013, it was announced that a contest would determine the mascot of the Games. Children under the age of 16 had until March 8, 2013 to submit their ideas. 4,000 ideas and drawings were submitted to the organizing committee during this time frame. In April 2013, a short list of 6 mascot designs were released, including a raccoon, beaver, moose, 2 pixie creature twins, porcupine and an owl. The final 6 were selected based on originality, how well they represent Canadian culture and the branding of the games, and the appeal they had amongst adults and children. On April 22, 2013, the general public was allowed to vote for the mascot they felt was the best. Voting was open until May 5, 2013. On July 17, 2013, Patchy the porcupine was revealed as the official mascot of the games at an unveiling at the CBC building. The mascot received over 33,000 votes from the nationwide vote. The winning design was submitted by 4 grade 8 students at a school in Markham. The name Patchy means clapping with joy in Japanese, while the 41 quills the porcupine has represent the 41 participating countries at the Games. The New York Times described the mascot as a departure from the usual cute and cuddly and a marketing challenge. Music. The event's official theme song was released in 3 versions. The English language Together We Are One, performed by Serena Ryder, the French ensemble Honest Immense, performed by Jasmine Denham, and the Spanish Unidos Somos Más, performed by Eva Avila. Sponsorship. Private sponsors included Chevrolet Canada. Another sponsorship deal with CAA South Central Ontario announced in January 2014 was terminated in May 2014. Premier and lead partners at OSIT Systems, P. Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, Chevrolet, Cirque du Soleil, Cisco Systems, Live Nation Entertainment, President's Choice, Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. Official suppliers Aeroplan, Agreco, Allstream Inc., ArcelorMittal, McKesson Corporation, Barrick Gold, Cadillac Fairview, Coca-Cola Canada, DB Schenker, Esso Canada, Porter Airlines, Siemens,